Father in heaven, be with us throughout this midday power surge is our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Greetings, salutations to Safe to Serve International and first-time viewers. Welcome to this midday power surge. This is your spiritual oasis on this pilgrim journey. I'm your host, Andrew Henriquez, on this Thursday, January 4th. Welcome one, welcome all to this midday power surge. Have you ever heard this term, paid to purge? If you have not, stay tuned. If you have, stay tuned. We're going to be addressing a number of things throughout this presentation which are very startling. And one of those themes is going to be, did the Jesuits just confess that they exterminated Abraham Lincoln? Jesuits are now pushing for a new civil war here in America. A Jesuit magazine also just confirmed that the writings of Ellen White are factual, true, and from my perspective, they are inspired. We're going to be addressing these important facts. And friends, please stay tuned because we are on the precipice of another great crisis fulfilling end-time prophecy. Now, below in this description of this video, I will post a link of a video we covered on December 25th. In that video, I laid the biblical foundation as firm can be. And that would have been part one of this three-part mini-series. Let's get right into this. When people generally hear the term civil war, they think about groups of people clashing against each other, and death is the actual result. That's on one side of the coin. Have you ever considered the pestilence 19 pandemic was actually a civil war in a secondary sense? You may ask, what do I mean? When they manufactured the pestilence 19 and released it on the population, a few persons were infected at first. And from those individuals, they began to infect others. Civil war, they began to infect others. And death was the end result for millions of people. Was that a civil war in a secondary sense? If you agree with me, that means we have been in a civil war since March 11th, 2020, when the pestilence 19 pandemic was officially announced. The emergency part of it has passed, but we're still under pestilence 19 pandemic watch. And remember, the WHO leader has said, everybody expect the big one, with a fatality rate of 75%. In contrast to the pestilence 19 fatality rate, less than 1% of the population. Will that be a civil war? Secondary sense? Let's get right into this. The question was asked of Christ, what will be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? In Matthew 24 and verse 3, and Christ begins to lay out in verse 7, there shall be wars, not only wars among nations, but civil wars. Famines, pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places, quote unquote, climate change. Verse 8, the beginning of sorrows. Verse 9, and then the war will be turned against God's faithful people. So if we're seeing we have entered a time of a civil war, then friends, expect who the next target is going to be. God's commandment keeping people, even God's seventh day Sabbath keeping people. Watch this. Half of Americans expect a civil war in the next 5 years. Pardon me. not 5, the next few years. There it is, friends. And this was released in 2021, 2022. Notice, now they're making a comparison between Lincoln and Donald. Their presidency, how one is being removed from the ballot today as it was in 1860. Remember, I covered this in part, in short, this past, Tuesday? Yes, when we had the Q&A session. I told you I would return. Clip 1.
In 1860, the abolitionist movement was ascendant, and the pro-slavery Democratic Party was in shambles. It was the year Abraham Lincoln was on the ballot, until Southern Democrats kicked him off the ballot. Instead of trying to win an election with persuasion, Southern Democrats booted Lincoln off the ballot in 10 states. But even that wasn't enough. Lincoln became the first president ever to be elected with less than 50% of the vote. And then the Civil War broke out the next year, and Abraham Lincoln was later assassinated. History always has a way of repeating itself.
So once you see the candidate removed from the ballot, what came next? The Civil War. All right. And of course, history does repeat, not according to the Fox News host, the anchor. No. It's Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 9. The things that have been, those things shall be. There's no new thing under the sun. Clip 2. Colorado.
History always has a way of repeating itself. Last night, just like Southern Democrats did to Lincoln, the Colorado Supreme Court banished Trump from the ballot. The Colorado Secretary of State explains why.
I think that the big picture, no matter if Donald Trump ends up being on the ballot or off the ballot, is the extent of how dangerous he is to American democracy.
You can't save democracy by denying Americans the right to vote. You can't find somebody guilty of a crime that they haven't been charged with.
And not only Colorado, but now we're seeing the state of Maine has done the same. Not only those two states. Look at this now. It says, before the Supreme Court can weigh in, other states may follow the lead of Colorado and Maine in seeking to keep Trump's name off the ballots. Efforts are underway in what other states? Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, New Mexico, New York, and Texas. Mr. Czar, Texas, among other states. Watch this. And now others are saying it has happened before. They are connecting the links. People in the world are actually promulgating the fact history is being repeated. Are God's professed people asleep?
This happened before. It happened before. In 1860, 10 southern states disbarred a man called Abraham Lincoln from being on the ballot, but he still won the presidency. But that happened as America was preparing for a bloody civil war.
That's it.
At the loss of 750,000 lives. My fear is that the way these political appointees have behaved in Colorado last night sends a very bad message, which is, we have decided to remove from you your democratic rights to have the option to vote for a candidate you may choose. And by the way...
And he's going to go on to state, when you remove people's right to vote for a particular candidate, this will create a civil war, something worse than what transpired on January 6th, the so-called March on the Capitol.
Ever, the American Supreme Court must put a stop to this, because you know what? If you remove people's right to vote, you force them to take other measures. And what happened on January the 6th will look like a Sunday afternoon tea party unless we get back some sense of perspective in America.
And you know that many Americans are already unhinged. Yes. And all they need is a trigger, a spark. In the 1860s, they had one pop rifles. One pop rifles. Imagine what people have access to right now. Semi-automatic weapons and other ammunitions that will bring about mass casualties. We haven't seen anything yet. And inspiration, God's word, has prophesied it will come to pass. And now, here's why this is so important. After 1860 and 1863 in America, then there was a statute, Article 14 of the U.S. Constitution, that says insurrectionists cannot run nor hold office. That Article 14 has never been used as a political ploy to bar another candidate until now. Until now. Listen to this.
We could finish up with lots of democratic states removing Trump from the ballot. And that is why the American Supreme Court has to forget about Christmas holidays. The American Supreme Court needs to rule very quickly on Article 14 of the US Constitution, something written in the wake of the Civil War that has never, ever been used for political ends, ever.
And friends, here we have it now. So we have these movies coming out, predictive programming. Yes, leave the world behind. And they spoke about the 3-stage maneuver to topple a country's government from within. And it goes on to lay out the first 2 stages. The 3rd stage is a civil war, total collapse, people turning on each other. And now they're rolling out in March, April of 2024, another movie called Civil War. First sentence on top. Civil War trailer sees America tearing itself apart. With that in mind, as the people begin to watch these movies, they are now learning that the way in which you revolutionize the country and to bring about a change is to pick up arms. To pick up what? To pick up arms and go against the leaders who have been the instigators of your oppression, the agitators of your enslavement. It is coming. Now, that's on one end. There are going to be people who are sympathetic to the presidency. And they are going to say, you are rigging this election. You want to control us. If that does not begin in the time frame of the scoundrels and the tyrants, do you know that they will pay actors to go into these cities and stir up trouble and stir up riots and stir up civil unrest and create agitation and bloodshed in a same movie called The Purge? Some of you know what I'm talking about. The Purge. Several series of it. I was going to say like a Netflix series. Different episodes or parts to it. Let me cut the chase. First Purge. It says the film takes place in what city? New York. You mean the same New York City? Contemplating removing Trump from the ballot? That same New York City? Let's get back here. The film takes place in the New York City borough of Staten Island. As the title suggests, it is about the very first purge in the United States, which is done as an experiment to combat crime and poverty. The island is completely locked down. Does that sound familiar? Locked down? For those who choose to participate and those who do wear contact lenses with a built-in camera during the purge. Watch this now. And the purgers, the rioters, will be paid $5,000 for staying in Staten Island, along with receiving additional money for full participation. And in the next 12 hours, all crimes are legal, even murder, rape, legal. Paying people to bring about the purge, to create civil unrest, bloodshed. Why was that placed in a movie called The Purge? Why? In our next part of this miniseries, I'm going to share with you how the death decree is also a purge for God's people in the last days. But stay tuned for that. I can't cover everything in one setting. Listen now. Why are these things placed in a movie? Because, friends, art imitates life. Life imitates art. And secondly, they are sowing the seeds. If you want change, remember, we're trying to vote to bring in change, but they are quote unquote rigging the election. Our only option that's left is to pick up arms and create, yes, a revolution. That's what's coming. I wish I could say more on that. Let me pass this. Watch this. Friends, in this segment, I'm going to put the finger of protest on popery. Watch this.
This happened before. It happened before. In 1860, 10 southern states disbarred a man called Abraham Lincoln from being on the ballot.
Stop. How many states? 10 southern states barred Lincoln from being on the ballot. Why is that necessary to repeat that video clip and to emphasize? Because it is well documented that the Jesuits were behind the American Civil War in the 1860s. Well documented. So who could be behind the curtains, sowing the seeds for the next and maybe final civil war in America and then globally? The same Jesuits of Rome. Now, remember, in this segment, I'm going to prove it. And here's why it must be proven. So people can understand it's not black against white in these last days, rich against poor. They are turning these people against each other. Civil war, tearing society apart, a Trojan horse. Listen to me now. Popery controls the merchants. Revelation 18, verse 2 and verse 3. This must be stated. Why? Because they are going to try their utmost best to shut down platforms like this one to silence the truth. So please share this. Let's get to it. Friends, there it is. It's clear. Or even Abraham Lincoln said this. The Jesuits were behind the Civil War. He says, the priests of Rome are against our institutions, our schools, our most sacred rights, our so dearly bought liberties. If the American people could learn what I know of the fierce hatred of Jesuits, they'll drive them away tomorrow from among us, or they'll shoot them as traitors. That's Abraham Lincoln. He went on to say, I know that Jesuits never forget, never forsake. And as if Abraham Lincoln was signing off, he says, but man must not care how and where he dies, provided he dies at the post of honor and duty. That was written and published in the book 50 Years in the Church of Rome. Charles Chinnicky passed that. This is a documented fact. Jesuits were behind the Civil War and actually supporting the southern states. It's clear, documented. The Jesuits, Abraham Lincoln in that speech actually said, in the Gettysburg Address, he actually said the Civil War was actually testing the principles of liberty in America. Which power hates Americans' liberties? My friends, it is popery, the Jesuits. That has been written in their encyclical documents. The encyclicals represent the highest authoritative document of the Roman Catholic Church. Henry Kissinger went on to state, the purpose of popery is to crush out Protestantism, Protestant America, hence the Civil War, to bring about their new world order. Now, everybody, watch carefully. This is where the Jesuit magazine seemingly confesses Jesuits murdered, assassinated Abraham Lincoln and even JFK. It says, over the course of its nearly 500 years of existence, the Society of Jesus, Jesuits, have been the subject of many conspiracy theories of its own. Jesuits have been accused of killing Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. You can read the rest of that. It says now, from its origins, the Jesuits had been an international organization with men placed amongst the powerful, and a founder who hath said, we should, as Jesuits, be trying to influence the influential. Conspiracy theories about the Jesuits trying to rule the world kept popping up because what we were doing looked a lot like that. And when you get right down to it, what makes us so sure? Listen, what makes us so sure there wasn't some truth in what they were saying? That is a confession. Jesuits to take over the world, to crush out liberties, the assassination. Have you ever heard the colloquial saying, if it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it swims like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. Let's get to it now. Headline, the uncomfortable truth behind Jesuitism. It says Jesuits' work is actually to rule the world. To what? Rule the world. Jesuits' work, their aim is to influence the most influential people. What? Yes. Friends, we are told that was written in the book, Great Controversy. Jesuits' work is to influence whom? The most influential. It's right there. Great Controversy, page 235. Jesuits work their way into offices of state, climbing up to be the counselors of kings. For what purpose? To shape the policy of nations. That's the duck test. If it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. It goes on. The aim of Jesuits, last sentence, one of our desires is to do whatever is more conducive to further our own end for which we were created. What have Jesuits done? Lying, theft, perjury, even assassination were done to further the interests of the Roman Catholic Church. Confirming the words of Ellen White in the book Great Controversy. Let me give you some more. As influential people like kings, diplomats, and even business leaders or bishops have the potential to impact more people's lives, having Jesuits serve as advisors or Jesuits serve as their confessors. As people confess their sins to the priests, the Jesuits now know their secrets. Deceptive. And now it says, similarly, they will use schools to train their frontmen, just as is written in Great Controversy, page 235, confirming the writings of Ellen White. She was indeed inspired. All right, let me give you some more. This is a protester. Just 10 years after the Jesuit order was founded, English Augustine monk George Brown preached of the Jesuits, quote, they shall spread over the whole world, making your princes reveal their hearts and the secrets therein. In some places, Jesuits would get accused of being what? Spies for the Vatican. Spies! Listen now, the fact that our fully professed fathers take a fourth vow to the Pope and do so in a private ceremony only fed these claims. Jesuits are spies. Can that be confirmed? 2 witnesses. Great Controversy, page 235. Last sentence. Spies, second witness. The Economist wrote, American ambassadors, diplomats, when they go to a war zone, who do they receive intelligence from? The nuns of the Roman Catholic Church, the Jesuits. Mercy. Just as Ellen White said. Now what about Julian Assange in the WikiLeaks? Yes, the cables released by Mr. Assange. Why do you think the man is still in lockup? Why? Because he exposed the Vatican. He exposed Americans' draconian plots. He exposed their agenda to control and enslave the masses. Look at that. It's right there. He exposed the Vatican and American sinister agenda items. That's why the man is still under lockup. Assange. I'll come back to him shortly. There it is, friends. It says, what has been said of Jesuits, it's a possibility. Those things are true. A confession from America Magazine, which is a Jesuit magazine, the Jesuit Review. Watch this now. And what is the Pope's title? Mr. Pope Francis, he's a Jesuit. He says, if you want to understand me, look to the Jesuits. They will try to silence and shut down this platform. That's the duck test. If it looks like a duck, walks, swims, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. Jesuits are of the devil. Look at this now. And now we have the legacy media. Mainstream media, what are they promulgating? Civil war. Civil war. Surrounding Mr. Trump. Watch this. How on earth all these news outlets are saying the same thing? Because they're reading from the same script. Hello? Release that.
Sources tell ABC News there's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums.
Sources say there's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums.
Sources also telling ABC News there's been a strong reaction from some extreme groups online, including QAnon and other groups.
There's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums,
including those that were active before January 6th.
Including those that were active prior to January 6th.
Including those that were active prior to January 6th.
Involved in the January 6th insurrection.
Including those that were active prior to the January 6th riot.
Some have been calling for violence and even a civil war.
Some of them include calls for violence and even a civil war.
Some of them include calls for
violence in online forums
and even civil war.
This was the top comment on the search on the pro-Trump site The Donald last night. Quote, lock and load with references to a civil war.
Talking very violently about civil war.
Searches for civil war spiked.
They're talking about civil war.
Civil war. Civil war.
Civil war. Civil war. Civil war.
This is the kind of violence that led to the January 6th attack.
My friends, you have to share this so we can awaken the masses before it is too late. Now watch this now. This is The View. Listen what they said. Headline, The View host says the Trump ballot ban creates a visual of what? A rigged election. And many are going to view Trump as a martyr. And they will pick up arms. A coming civil war. This came out on January 2nd, 2024. Release it. Here it is.
I say here is that I actually agree with Governor Gavin Newsom and David Axelrod. These are Democrats, leading Democrats, that say this would really cause a division that's almost insurmountable. And as someone that believes January 6th was that bad, wait one second.
So what are you saying?
Wait, just 1 second. I don't think the Supreme Court's going to hold this. I think they're going to overturn it, and it won't just be the originalists. I bet it's a 9-0 vote. I actually don't think they will hold this.
So you think they should leave it to the voters or not?
I think they should leave it to the voters. But I think the division this will cause, because what will happen is that martyrdom will be one step more. We have a nation that doesn't believe in democracy, doesn't believe in the voting. Everyone that loses says it was rigged and failed. I think this will create a visual to people that this was a rigged election by doing it. I do.
I think that the law.
They will pick up arms. They are sowing the seeds for another civil war. And just, my friends, breaking news. What's the breaking news, Pastor? The book Great Controversy, along with your Bible, is the book of the hour. Sow the seeds. Get the book, The Great Controversy, into people's hands. All right. Inspiration goes on to state, expect a civil war before the time of trouble, such as never was. It is coming. Now, where is the biblical reference to confirm this? That's why below in the description box, a link is provided. December 25th, I gave the complete Bible study to confirm a civil war is coming. With that in mind, education page 228, expect a civil war. Expect anarchy. It's coming just as it was during the French Revolution. It was Popery who sowed the seeds that led to the French Revolution in the 1790s. It backfired, though. It's going to come again based on end-time prophecies. And these people, we're told, as it was in France, so it is going to be in America. They are going to become revolutionists, pointing to these leaders. You are the ones taking away our rights. We'll rise up with our arms, and you will not hear the end of it. Blood will be spilt. Blood will roll down the streets of America. So high up to the horse's bridle. That's in the Bible. Do you know that? That's part 3. Let me come back here, friends. There it is. It's coming. It says, the scaffolds ran red with the blood of the leaders. The reign of terror, it was called. I covered that December 25th. Not only priests and kings were also murdered, but even children, girls, babies. It's coming again. Bloodshed. Yes, bloodshed. There it is, friends. Listen to this. Last sentence. A general slaughter of all suspected of hostility to the revolution was determined. What does that mean? If you do not sympathize with the revolutionists, you're going to be blamed as a part of their problem. You must take a side. So what is the work of preparation? We all need to implement the 5 keys of survival. Let's get back to Mr. Assange, and then I'm going to close. He exposed America and Vatican's connection, their plan to rule, enslave the world. And Mr. Assange had a platform, which we will call today alternative media, but they must silence that platform. As I close, do you know why they want to destroy alternative media? Do you know why? So there'll be no protest, no enlightening and awakening the minds of the people. As I close, listen to all these legacy media platforms, mainstream media platforms, sowing the seeds. Our problem to combat climate change, to combat the pandemic, to combat poverty, it's because we have allowed alternative media to have a voice. They're spreading misinformation, disinformation. We must silence them. Here it is. Listen. Don't smile. It's serious.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Mercy. So we are dangerous. Those who protest, we are dangerous, just as they said of Jesus Christ. Safe to serve international. Safe to serve local. First-time viewers, I beg you, like, comment, share, so others can be awakened before it's too late. Very, very soon, we won't have this opportunity. By God's grace, I'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern for midday power surge. The Lord is soon to come. Implement the 5 keys of survival, and remember, the protest continues.